Alright, thanks for staying tuned. Today we're going to be making a beautiful short Ankara spaghetti sleeve bustier gown with a plunging neckline. Okay, let me show you what I'm talking about. I have to cover the face of this model because I have no right to share her face with you guys, right? This is what I'm making. Hope you can see it clearly. It's a bustier dress with a plunging neckline, but the neckline is held together with a tulle, so preferably a skin toned tulle. All right, and it's quite short, so let's get to it. Okay, what you're going to be needing, of course, are your measurements, your client's measurement or your own measurement if you're making for yourself. You need your marker pens. You need a pattern paper. I'm going to be using this brown one. That's why I'm using very bright colors so that we can see them. And then you need your rules and your tape rule, of course. And then, of course, your fabric and a matching zipper for the back, which is not within reach now, and a matching thread as well. Okay, and of course, a sewing machine. That's quite important. Okay, so let's get to it. I'm going to have to draft. I'll be drafting the bustier and the down parts. That's why so we're going to be going into bustier. We're going to do our basic we're going to be doing the basic patterns, and then we're going to now convert them into bustier. So let's keep watching and let's see how we're going to achieve this. All right, guys, so first of all, you're going to have to mark out the half length of the dress. The half length I'm working with, it's supposed to be 17, but I'm going to be marking 15 because there is a band directly under the bust that is about 1.5 inch long or 2 inches, depending on what we were going to work with. And this band is right before the skirt part of the dress. So I'm going to be working with 15 inches, but instead of marking 15 inches, I'm going to be including a half an inch to the 15 inches. That's for joining of this upper parts of the bustier to the band. So I'm going to just mark 15.5 all around and rule it. And now to divide our pattern paper so that we'll know where the back and the front is going to be, what I'm going to do is divide the biggest part of the measurements into 4. Now the biggest part for the upside now obviously is the bust, and the bust we're working with it is 36. So if you divide it by 4, you're getting 9. Now for the back part, I'm just going to be adding 1 inch to that 9 to give me for the back zip allowance. Okay. So I'm going to mark 10 inches all the way. So for pattern drafting, what we're going to be working with is the exact measurements of the client, and when we're transferring to the fabric, we can now add our sewing allowance. But still remember that I've added half an inch joining allowance already. So when I'm transferring to the fabric, I will not be adding that again. What we're going to be adding is the side allowance. Okay. All right. So now that we've marked out where the front is, let's get to the other part of the measurements. Now the shoulder measurements. We're going to be working with the shoulder measurement now. Now for the front side, instead of working with the same 10, because of the contouring I'm going to be having and this waist snatching, I'm going to be using say 11 because of the waist part of this dress. I'm going to be marking down 11 as the measurement I'm going to be using for the front side. Okay. Doesn't mean I'll be using the whole 11, but that is just to be on the safe side so I can get all the measurements I want into it. Okay. Now the shoulder measurement for this person is 16, so divided into 2 will give us 8. I'm going to mark here 8 down. And for the back part, including the zip allowance, we're having 9. Remember that we marked in the zip allowance when we were sewing, when we were marking its place. Sorry about that. All right, now the next thing I have to do is for you to know where your for you to know exactly how long to mark your armhole line. Your armhole. For you to know the length of your armhole, what I do is the calculation I use is the bust divided by 6 plus 1.5. Okay, so 36 divided by 6 will give us 6 plus 1.5 is going to give us 7.5. So now, first of all, for the back side, you have to mark down the 1 inch for the shoulder slanting. You mark it down, and for the front side, you are marking down 1.5. Okay, usually mark down 1.5. This is a normal pattern drafting for the bustier, for any other shirt. This is the what we're working with here. First, we're going to create the basic pattern drafting, then we will transfer it or convert it to a bustier measurement. Okay, so first you're going to achieve your basic pattern drafting. Okay, so we'll mark down 1 inch for the shoulder slant for the back, and then we take down our 7.5. okay, 7.5. So this is apparently 8.5 from the shoulder neckline. For the shoulder line is 8.5 down, so I'm going to take this 8.5 all the way. Okay, so let's mark this 8.5. I hope you guys can see what I'm doing. Probably have to bring this closer for you guys to see. Okay, so we're going to join these broken lines together. Now this is where the armhole is supposed to sit. Okay, now we'll bring this down to meet this point and bring this down as well. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and work on the neckline. Now the neckline of this dress, of course, you already know it's going to be an off-shoulder dress. It looks like an off-shoulder with a spaghetti sleeve. So that doesn't mean we're not going to include marking the neckline, then we can now alter the pattern later. Okay, so for the basic neckline for someone of 36, how I get that is for a bust 36, I divide bust 36 by 12. You get 3 inches. So I'm going to take this 3 inches round. Now remember that the back has an extra 1 inch for the zipper, so you always remember this. If this is going to be difficult for you to keep remembering, you can just work with just the actual measurement. Then when you are transferring to the fabric, you add this 1 inch. But I like to work with the 1 inch because of the back snatching, to avoid the bulging of the zip. So I'm going to have to remove everything here. It's how I prefer it. Okay, but if you're going to find it difficult, please make sure to just work with the measurement and then add your allowance later. Okay, so I'm going to mark down 1 inch here. I'm working with, so instead of marking 3 inches, I marked 4 inches. Okay, so I'm marking 4 inches here, 4 inches for the back, and then 1 inch down. Now for this one, I'm going to be using my hand to curve it, and then use a rule to bring it home. Okay, that's for that. And then do your shoulder slanting, very important. Okay, let's do the same thing for the back. And for the front side, the front now we're working with 3 inches by 3 inches. Okay, 3 inches by 3 inches. You can use your armhole rule to bring it down, and then do your slanting for the front. Remember, the slant for the front is 1.5 inches. Okay, it's coming together. Now for the back part, what I do is for the armhole cinching, I half of this armhole line. So what I do is I fold my my tape in half to get the half of it. But this method over time will spoil your tapeworm. But of course, nothing lasts forever, right? So now I come in by half an inch into the measurement, and then I rule from the slanted line to that half an inch. Okay, next thing I'll do is use my shoulder, my armhole ruler to curve it, to rule it to the armhole line. And this is your armhole. Okay, now for the back, for the front, I come up by 3 inches or 3.5 inch. You come up by 3 inches or 3.5 inch. Okay, let's work with 3 inches. And then you can rule in by 0.75 or 1 inch, depending on how you want it to be. So I will work with 0.5, 0.25, 75 or 1 inch. And just like the back side, you also use your rule to bring it down. Now maybe I'll have to create a class only for the basic pattern drafting. So yeah, I probably have to use a white pattern paper and explain this more in detail so that you guys will understand. But this is quite an explanation though. Alright, so moving ahead, now we are going to also include all the other horizontal lines on the upper part of the body. Now what we're going to do now, for you are going to measure from the shoulder line, you go up, you get to the top of the bust. Okay, top of the bust is the part where the bust starts. You have to take this measurement when you are measuring the person. Okay, so for me, from shoulder to the top of the bust for this person is 7 inches, so I'm going to be marking 7 inches. Yeah, and because it's 7 inches all the way, we're going to take it all the way 7 inches. This is where the bust starts from, so it is going to help guide you. If you want this person's bust, the top of the bust to be obvious, you can now come down when you are altering it. Now this is us trying to alter this. Okay, I'm ruling across because I'm cutting both of them at the same time. You're going to also include your bust. For the front part, you work for the bust. The bust is shoulder to the bust is 10.5, and then shoulder to the under bust is 13.5. You have to include all these measurements. Okay, because when you do this, the dress is going to fit perfectly. Now if you look at the back part, I'm just going to be measuring the shoulder to the, I'm just going to be taking the waist measurement for the back without ruling it. But for the back part, I am going to be removing 1.5 inch from the actual measurement. Now this 1.5 inch I'm removing, 2 inches. This 2 inches I'm removing, I am going to have to subtract it from the front side when I am altering the bust area for the front side. Now this is also to help with snatching the waist and avoiding bulginess of the zip and stuff. Now this, let me tell you something else. This particular method, of course, if you are doing just a basic pattern for a free dress, you do not need to do it. But if for a dress that's supposed to be tight on the person, you have to do it, so that because if you take the measurements, you have to also measure the person's measurements for you to know if you're taking out 2 inches or 1.5 inch. Now there are people who, when you take their measurement, the shoulder to the waistline for the back might be 2 inches shorter than that of the front, or 3 inches or 4 inches. Whatever measurements you get, that is what you are going to be working with. It's very important. If the person's measurement is 5 inches for the back, shorter than the front half length, you have to use that 5 inches. It's not going to come out badly. To be perfect. The fitting will be really beautiful. Just trust me on that. Okay, now what we're going to do next is remember that 1 inch I added for the back, for the zip. You have to mark it so that it will be obvious. Indicate it so that it will help you when you're putting in the measurements. It will not give you wahala. So don't go and make a mistake. You include it. So roll it out so that you will know where it is. Now we have the 1 inch. Okay, because this is where we are, so you guys can see. I need to get a better phone stand. This is where we are at. Okay, so this is the 2 inches that I'm taking out for the back. This is the back, of course. This is the 2 inches I'm taking out so that the back will have better cinching. This is the front. Okay, all right, I'm going to keep it back here and hopefully return it to show you guys more. Okay, so now that we have gotten that part, what we're going to do is transfer the person's actual measurements into this pattern. Okay, now how are we going to do that? For the bust, we're going to get the bust measurement, which is 36 divided by 4, which we have established to be 9. You can have a calculator in around so that you don't make mistake or work with assumption. This is somebody's measurement. If you make a mistake, it is going to affect the dress and the outcome. So even if you know that 36 divided by 4 is 9, you can also cross check with your calculator, because sometimes you'll be thinking of 9 and when you are marking it, you go and mark 8 or something shorter than that. Okay, now we know that what is left here is 9. That's the exact measurement that we need. Then for the under the bust of the person, for under the bust measurement or the waistline, okay, we're going to be dividing by 4, and the under bust of this person is 30 inches. So 30 divided by 4 is 7.5. Now we are going to be including 1.5 inch for our back dart. Now plus 1.5. So we are getting back the same 9. So this is actually the measurement for the back. Now for the dart line, we are going to be including the dart line by coming in. Now what I'm going to be using for the dart line here is the bust point measurement. That's nipple to nipple measurement for the front, which is 8. So we're working with 4 here. We're going to be 4. I'm going to mark 4. So I'm going to mark the 4 inches. That's the nipple to nipple measurement for the front. Mark it all the way to the bust line. And then bring this down. Now for the 1.5 inch that we just included in the measurements, to take it out from the dart, it has to be 0.75. 0.75 on both sides of the measurement, and 0.75 to get that on your tape. It's the third line, the second line after the 1/2 inch line. I don't know if you get that. So we bring this down and this. Okay, now I have that part for the back. And also part of the stitching for the back also is removing 1/2 inch on the zip line. So we have the dart line for the back. So we're going to remove the 1/2 inch to avoid the zip bulge at the back. Now this 1/2 inch, I'm going to take it up and then roll it all the way to, I don't know, it depends on you actually. You can just come down from the shoulder line by 4 inches or 3 inches and stop there. Okay, and just mark, slant it to that point. With this 1/2 inch removed, when you attach the zip, you're going to also still use the 1 inch. You're not going to say because you removed 1/2 inch you will not join the zip with 1/2 inch. No, you're going to be joining the zip with 1 inch. That way the zip line will not bulge. It will be straight and comfortable on the person. All right, moving ahead. Now let's work on the front pattern. Meanwhile, let me show you guys what we've done. Okay, so now let's work on the front pattern. Okay, for the front pattern, guys, we're going to come in as well for 4 inches. That's the nipple to nipple measurement that we worked with for the back dart. Okay, 4 inches, and take it all the way to the top of the bust measurement. Bring this down. Now for the down part, the waistline, we're going to be removing 1.5 inch for the darts, for the dart line. 1.5 inch. That's your 0.5 on both sides. 0.75, sorry. Okay. Now for the under bust line, this is the under bust line, this is the bust line, and this is the top of the bust line. For the under bust line, I like to work with 2 inches at least to help snatch the under bust and make it really curvy. So to achieve that, you can come with your 0.575 up here, and on this side you're going to be using the remaining measurement from the 2 inches. So 2 inches minus 0.75, so you have 1.25. So you're going to be working with 1.25 on this side. Now for the top of the bust, I'm going to be removing 1/2 inch on both sides to help snatch this measurement and make it really curvy. Okay, so let's bring our armhole to bring this curve on. So from the bust line, you're going to be coming down this way, come down by 1 inch here and go up by 1 inch here, and then from that 1 inch on the down part, you connect this line, and then bring it down like so. On this other side, you turn your roll this way. From that 1 inch, you connect the lines. Now why we come down by 1 inch is because we are trying not to have a pointed line on the bust point. Okay, so this method is going to help eliminate that mark. Okay, so this method of removing, coming down by 1 inch helps to eliminate pointiness on the bust point. Okay, remember that. So the same way, you're going to come up here and bring this 1/2 inch down to the 1 inch you've taken up, turn your roll, and do the same thing on this side. Now what's left for us to do is to bring down this. Now when you do this, of course this place is going to look like it's a curvier. Now to eliminate pointing lines, like I've mentioned, you are going to curve it in. Let's come closer and see what's going on here. So we're going to come in here and smoothen up this place, smoothing it up, because we don't want to have any pointiness. Now this is the front, this is where we are at, and this is the 1/2 inch on both sides that we've taken out. All right, so this is where we are. Let's now include the measurements of the horizontal parts of the dress. Okay, let's continue. Okay, now we're going to work with the other measurements, the actual measurement of the body. So for the bust part, 36 divided by 4, like we know, is 9. Of course, you can confirm it. So you come here and you mark your 9 inches. Now for the under bust is 30 divided by 4. Now remember, we have 2 inches we added for the under the bust. You're going to include it here. So you have 9.5 as the measurement for this place. Please don't forget. Do not forget. Okay. Now for the waistline, what we have will be 9 inches, because what we added is 1.5 inch for the dart line. Don't forget that as well. Now bring your lines together. You can use a ruler and bring it together. So what I do is when I get here, to get it to the shoulder armhole line, I just use this to kind of take it in a bit. All right, so remember we removed 2 inches from the back waistline to show you, because the back of this person's measurement is 2 inches shorter than the front. Now that 2 inches, we are going to have to bring it down. Come in here from the bust line, you come down by 2 inches. After you have imputed this measurement, that's when you do this. You come down by 2 inches, and you take these 2 inches to the bust point, line. Now for somebody who is very busty, like a bust 38 or bust 40 and above, bust 38 and above, or 36 and above, what you do is, instead of marking it to this point, you can come here by 1 inch, come out by 1 inch, and then do the slant. Let me do that with a different color so that you will not be confused. Okay, so what I'm saying is, let's come closer and look at this again. What I'm saying is, if you are working with for someone who has a bust 36 and above, that is really very, very busty, like 38, 40 and above, all the way down. Now this slant I'm doing here now, after you remove the 2 inches or whatever number of inches that the back is lacking compared to the front, after you remove it, what you're now going to do is use that same measurement, because what we have here is 2 inches. You come from the bust line, you come down by 2 inches. After you have imputed the this line, after you've imputed this measurement, you come down by 2 inches, or the number of inches depending on who you're working for, or if it's for yourself. Okay, now for someone that is 36 below, you go straight from the bust point and you rule to connect to that 2 inches you have marked. But if it's someone that's like 38 or 40 and above, all those measurements, you first come out from here, you come down by 1 inch, right? And then from that 1 inch you mark it. But when the day I'm going to be doing a full corset pattern drafting, I'm going to explain better. So for that person that is those who are bustier, when you mark it from here, after when you're now working with cutting it, you're going to have to open here, open it and fill it up. I'll try and show you that in one of these classes, okay? But that's not what we're working with now, so we're going to probably be here. All right, so now that you've marked this, you have to now cover this place. This place that you have marked out, you have to be eliminated. You're going to be eliminating this part. So let's go ahead and do that and go to the down part of the dress. Okay, so when I am working on a pattern drafting, I always have a different scissors for pattern drafting. I don't use the same scissors I use for cutting fabrics for it. I must have mentioned this in my other class, so I'm re-emphasizing it. I have different scissors for different fabrics. Look at this one. This one is even paper. See, this for paper stay. But I can't find the scissors for my pattern papers. It has to be stacked in here somewhere. So I'm going to be using this. So for me to cut this part, for me to eliminate it, I have to first open here, cut out this back part first, so that I can be able to cut this. Then here we're going to remove this part that we don't need. Remove it. Remove here. Okay. Now we have to fold in here like so. Fold it down. So we're going to bring this and show you better. I need a pin to be able to fasten this. Alright, that's what I'm saying. Look at it here. So you're going to fold it from the end of the bust point. You're going to fold it in and eliminate that part like so. make sure to hold it down either with a pin or with a tape. Sellotape will be better. Now from here you have to connect this part back. This space here should be covered up. Connect it back to the armhole. I hope you can see that. You can do it with your ruler, but I just do it with free hand because I'm using one hand to hold my recorder. Okay, here you connect that to the armhole. Now we're ready to cut the rest of the pattern paper out. Okay. Remember to cut out this ½ inch that you removed from the back zip measurements. Okay, take it out as well. Then we are taking out all of this. People, we still have a lot of alterations to make. Remember, what we are making is not just a simple dress. There are other alterations that need to be made. So let's get to them. Okay, now for this upside, I've decided that this particular one, now we are going to come up a little bit because we want this to actually cover the top of the bust a bit. Now to achieve that, we're going to be coming up by, say, 0.5 inch. I'm going to be coming up by 0.5 inch. Let me use a different pen for my other alterations. 0.5 inch, so that you see the different line that I'm marking. So you won't be confused. Roll it down. Do the same thing here for the front part. 0.5. Okay, so remember also that this dress, it also has a sleeve, but it's a spaghetti sleeve. Now to achieve that spaghetti sleeve, this is what I'm going to be marking out, right? Come here. This spaghetti sleeve is like ½ an inch or 0.75 inch in width. So we're going to come here, looking at where it is placed on this person. This is what I'm assuming it is. Coming by 2 inches, and then mark 1 inch, so that when you join it together, when you fold it in, it is going to give you the measurements you need, right? From here, we're going to be coming down like so. Coming down like so. This is it. Okay. Now from here as well, we're going to go in by 2 inches. Mark your 1 inch. Do the same thing here. Come down. Now the thing with pattern drafting is, if you look at where this thing is now, it's exactly on. If you look at where, let me show you something. If you look at where this spaghetti hand is coming from, it's coming right and the other line of the bust. That's the bust point. So that's where you're going to be placing this. So this is going to be the line of the bust, obviously. So from here, you're coming here and here. So you come here and bring this one down here. So that's it. Now we are going to be cutting it out. Alteration almost done. Not done yet, but almost. Because we still have one more thing to do. So we are going to be cutting out this part. Okay, let's get to that. Now, to avoid mixing this paper up when you want to join it, this is what you are going to be doing. You use this blue pen. You are going to include back and maybe indicate here to be the up. You do the same thing at this other one too. This is very important though, because when you start joining it now, if you don't know how you cut it, how you marked it, you are going to be joining it the wrong way. It will not be a whole disaster for you. Now, to avoid this, people of God, to avoid this, this is front, up, please always remember, every tiny thing you mark is important. You cannot make a mistake when you are doing it. But since it's pattern drafting, when you make a mistake, it's easy to correct it on the paper than it is when you do it directly on the fabric. That's what I've learned, When you make a mistake, you go over it after your cutting and everything. You can go over it and then decide what you're going to do. Now, if you look at this this style we're making, look at it again. Now you will see the plunging neckline. It's all the way down to where it stopped. All the way down to where it stopped. This width is showing me that this place is at least 1 inch. In pictures, it looks way bigger. It looks like 1 inch opening, and the down is probably like half an inch opening. So we're going to be doing that by marking in 1 inch on this side, the up side, then mark half an inch here, the down part, and roll it down. Now, when I do this, I'll come and show you guys before I will eliminate it. Use the close screen. Let's see something. Okay, let me show you guys this. Okay. Now look at, after eliminating that 2 inches from this place, you see that these sides, they are now equal. So they are now equal. So when you join it, there won't be any issue. You will not be worried that since you took 2 inches away from here, the front will not be longer, it won't be able to join. No. So when you are adding your sewing allowance, you're just going to add it exactly as it is here. Just mark out your sewing allowance and that's it. When you join it, they will match. Okay? And that's for one part. Then also remember your band, the band for the up, for the back side, and the band for the front side. Band for the front side as we cut it out. All right, now note also this particular part alteration we just made for this place is 1 inch and this down part is half an inch. We're going to be cutting it out, and remember that when you are sewing this and when you want to transfer it to your fabric, you will add a joining allowance, please, because if you don't add a joining allowance, you are going to end up using more of the fabric to join it, and that will affect it. Okay, also note that this part you are cutting out is not a waist. This I'm going to be labeling it as the tool or net. And this part you are cutting out is equally important. You're not throwing it away. This is the net part that is holding these two parts of the front together. So please remember that. Don't throw it away. It's important too. So let's explain again. Now when you are going to be transferring to the fabric, of course you're going to see when I'm doing it. You're going to be adding maybe half an inch or whatever sewing allowance you want to this side, and then the same thing to this side of this. But this will be cut folded. So you can note cut on fold to help so you don't forget. But this part will be cut on fold. Let me smoothen this out by trimming out here. This part will be cut on fold. This part is going to be cut on fold. So remember that, please. People of God. Alright, now that we are done with cutting the front, we're drafting the front upside. Let's draft the skirt part of this, and then we can get to sewing. Alright guys, let's continue and head over for the down part of the dress. That's the skirt part. So for the skirt part now, the full length of the dress we're making is 35 inches, and we've already taken out 15 inches for the upside. And also note that I told you I'm going to be adding a band. The dress has a band on the waistline, and that band is 2 inches. So if you take out 15 plus 35, you have 20, and you take out 2 inches, you have 18 left. Okay, so we're going to be working with 18 as the length of this fabric. So the down part. So I'm going to be using the blue pen for the back part and the red for the front. So let's mark our 18. All we need is 18. Let's divide this into two using the biggest part of our measurement, which is our hip. Our hip is 43.5. What I have there is almost 12 for 24. So working with 12, I'm going to mark it 12 all the way down. This skirt part I'm making now, I'm going to also convert this skirt to another skirt that I'm going to be making for this same person, because the length matches and it's for the same person. But when we get there, of course, I'm going to remind you, right? I'm going to bring your attention to it. Alright, so since this is going to be the back, when you're marking the waistline, you're going to be starting here. The waistline is 33 inches divided by 4. That will give us 8.25 here. Now when you take measurements, you have to know where the hip line is. The hip line is an important measurement you have to take, like from the shoulder to the hip. Now for this person, from the shoulder to the hip of this person is 27, right? 27, for me to put it here, you have removed 15 inches already for the upside. Now you are removing 2 inches for the band. So from here I'm going to be placing this at 17 to get the 27, which is a shoulder to her hip measurement. So when you are taking measurements, also take this measurement. It's very important. That way the dress will fit perfectly and there won't be any adjustments. When you're taking the measurements for someone and you want to measure where their hip is, understand? You tell them to tilt their hip to one side so that you can feel the hip bone. Then you can mark as the hip measurements. Alright, that's a tip for you guys. Alright, so we're marking. So now when you now measure it from here to that hip line, you have got that's 10 inches. Okay, so you're marking 10 inches. Okay, I think I've started using blue for everything instead of using the blue for only the back. Alright, so the hip 43.5 divided by 4 will give me 10.875. So 10.875, I'm going to approximate it to 11. So this fraction is plenty. But there's something I want to also include in this measurement now, because I've seen that the measurement will be enough. It will be enough to get me 1 inch for the back. So I'm going to be using 12 here, and instead of using 8.25 here, I'm going to be using 9.25 here for the back. Now this is going to be ensuring that I have 1 inch at the back for the zip allowance. I hope you guys remember there's going to be a zip at the back of this dress. Okay, let me mark out this zip line so that we will not get confused. People of God. Okay, now if you remember, okay, also when we're marking the upside, we took out half an inch from the waistline for the waist cinching. Now for the band we are going to be making, that band will correspond to whatever we have on the up and down. So we don't need to remove any half inch from the waist for the band, even though we're going to include it when we're cutting it. So I'm going to be taking out a little half an inch again as well on this side to keep the waistline tighter, because if you look at your waistline now, you notice that on the line of your spinal cord it's a bit inside. It's slanted back inside a bit, so that curviness you have to include it, because it's going to give space at the back of your dress when you make it. So for this one, you're not going to be going too inside. Now you can just come down by 3 inches, and this is just simple hacks I used to give a perfect fit when you are doing this, and then you come here and you remove this for the zip. I'm telling you, when you put the zip in this dress, it's going to fit, but it looks as if it was like sewn on the person. It will be very fine. Okay, now that we've done that, let's connect our lines. This hip line, let's connect it to the Now for here, I also take measurement of where I want the skirt or the gown to stop, and you measure around it where it is most comfortable for the person. If you don't do that, you can just remove 1 inch or 2 inches from the hip, depending on how tight the person would not mind it being. Now if I'm going to remove 2 inches from the hip to do it, which means there's going to be a slit at the back for ease when the person is walking. Note that, please. Okay, so since it's the back here, we're getting 10 inches. No, this 10 cannot work. We're getting 11 inches. Oh, I made a mistake here. This is supposed to come this way. Alright. Sorry about that. See, this is why you cut on pattern paper, so that your mistake can easily be corrected. If you do it on top of the fabric and you forget and cut it, don't finish it. That's it. Alright, so for this waistline that's 11 now, I'm going to come here and come in by 2 inches, that is 9. Now the reason why I'm doing this, because I want it to have this nice fitting. Now remember, we do not work with pointy lines. So this pointy line I'm getting at the hip area, I am going to be correcting it by using this curved rule. We are going to use this curved rule to eliminate the curviness. It shouldn't be pointy, let it be, because our body is not that straight. There's some curviness to it, so you're going to remove it. Sorry for my mess that I'm creating. Okay, so we are taking this out. Okay, I think when you are making this, it will be advisable you work with a lighter pen so that you don't end up having all this plenty shading that I'm messing up here. Alright, that's for this part. Now for this, when you get here, what I do is I go up by half an inch on the waistline to the side. You go up by half an inch and slant it to the beginning of your dress, not to the zip line, to the beginning of your back measurements, back waistline. This is also to help give your dress some curviness. Right, let's do the same thing for here. So the waistline for the front divided by 4 is giving us 8.25. So we will mark this down. 8.25. And because we decided to use 11 for the hip of the back, we're going to do the same thing here. Because when you are sewing it, you can reduce it to exactly what you want. Also remember that for this down part, we took out 2 inches. So I'm going to take out 2 inches here as well. So I'm getting 9 here. So this measurement, this skirt pattern is actually an easy one that almost everybody can do it. Just when you do this, like I said, work with lighter pens so that you can. To avoid bulginess, you have to use this. Use a rule to smoothen it out. Now, if you are using a thick pen like I am, it's going to look too smudgy around. So it is now advisable that you not use a thick pen from the beginning. Use a lighter pen so that when you blend it in, it will not give you that over smudged wasting. Okay, now the way we went up by half an inch here, we are going to go up by half an inch here as well and slant it to the beginning. Now for the front part, you can also come down instead of going down exactly on the waistline. You can come down by maybe 1/4 of an inch or ½ inch for the front side. It helps to give you better fitting for your dress. Okay. Alright, let me show you what we have done here before I will cut it out. Hip, and back and front. Let's show you this before I cut it out. Okay, and I'll go over it again. This is the waistline for the back, this is the hip line, and this is the end of the dress. Okay, and then I took out ½ an inch here, came down by 3 inches and slanted it for the zip bulginess at the back. This also helps to give you perfect fitting. So, but if you don't want to use ½ an inch here, you can come in by, you can make it 1/4 of an inch instead of ½ an inch. But for someone who is very curvy, the person I'm making it to has a really steep back. The back of the person is very steep, so this is perfect for the person. Okay, all right, then I also came up here by ½ an inch and slanted it to this point, not to the zip point, but to this point, the line of the back. Then for the front, we repeated just the same thing. The only difference is there is no zip allowance, and of course the slant here. And instead of coming to the end of the pattern here, we came down by 1/4 of an inch and slanted it all the way down. Alright, that's basically it. I'm going to cut this, and the next time you see this, we're going to be placing on top of your fabric and cutting it out. I want to believe you guys know how to place your pattern paper on your fabric and put your allowance and cut it out, and then we will not head over to sew it, but I'm going to show you this in a quick video too. Alright guys, I've transferred the pattern to the fabric and I left a lot of allowance. I have a 1.8 inches allowance here because I'm going to be using 1/4 of an inch to do the seam closure. Like I'm going to sew it with the lining and conceal it before I will now use the remaining ½ inch to join the sides. I'm going to show you guys the process, of course. So the way I have this now I have excess of fabric here, and this is because I'm going to be cutting the lining exactly this measurement, and then I'm going to be using this to sew on the line. So when I conceal it, it will be coming out looking like this. I'm going to also show you guys that when I'm sewing it, but I just have to show you guys this. This is the front. This is the front piece, and remember there's a tool in the middle of the front. This is the tool, and this is the side of the front. This is now the center piece. This is the middle piece, and this is the side piece for the front. Then the back, of course, has just one piece. Remember to add your darts. You're going to transfer these dart lines to the fabric. So what you're going to do is make a little snip here and here to indicate where your dart stops. And of course, take this measurement and use and put it on your fabric so you can transfer it. Okay, this is the shoulder spaghetti sleeve for the back, the shoulder spaghetti sleeve for the front. I showed you guys this when I was cutting it and when I marked it out from the pattern paper. Alright, so this is this part. I've already transferred this. Okay, I had to show you guys this before we continue. Now this is something else here, the band, the waistband. This is the front piece and the two for the back. Okay, and I cut it in a way that when I fold it, this is 5 inches by the size of the waist divided by 4. So when you fold it after joining with a half and an inch, you have 2 inches left. Okay, all right, so this is it. I'm going to go ahead. I cut the lining for the upside with the fabric. I did it because I want a very neat finishing and because I still had a little bit of excess fabric left. But I'm going to be using a black lining for the down parts. I'm going to be cutting it like this, but exactly on this length, so that I can fold it for inseam finishing with this excess. Alright, I'm going to go and cut the lining, and then when I sew the sides of the lining for the concealing of this seam, I will come back and show you guys. Okay.